Good evening and welcome to the programme. First tonight, a tribunal hearing has been told a Bristol-based surgeon was cavalier, unreasonable, and his treatment of some patients fell seriously below standards.
Tony Dixon worked at both Southmead and the Spire Hospital in Bristol, where he pioneered a new type of mesh surgery. He was dismissed by the North Bristol NHS Trust in 2019 after complaints led to a review of his work. Mr Dixon maintains he always acted in good faith.
Well, let's join Annie Knowlson, who's been at the tribunal in Manchester. Annie, what did the panel hear?
Yes, well, today former patients of Anthony Dixon attended the hearing in Manchester and came face to face with a man they've not seen in years. Now, it's expected to be a lengthy tribunal. It's expected to last around 6 weeks and conclude in November. Now, today it was time to hear the allegations against Mr Dixon, and they include that patients weren't properly informed of the operations they were going to have. They weren't told about the complications that could arise from it or the risks involved. It's also alleged that some pre-surgical tests weren't carried out and that obtaining consent for the operations was also an issue, with some patients being handed sheets of paper to fill in on the day of the surgery itself. The hearing also heard how one woman went to Mr Dixon in pain and was told she was being a drama queen and that it couldn't be all that bad. Now, evidence will be heard from 6 patients over the course of the next 6 weeks, and it will be determined whether or not Mr Dixon is struck off the medical register. Well, I've been speaking to some former patients who've been affected by these operations to hear about the impact this has had on their lives. Paula Goss began having issues going to the toilet after having a hysterectomy in 2009. Spending hours in the bathroom and suffering with pain, she turned to Bristol-based surgeon Tony Dixon for help and was operated on in 2014. She says she trusted Mr Dixon and, at the time, didn't know much about the procedure.
It was never discussed that there was an artificial implant that was going to be put in, although he did say that the procedure that he was going to do would be gold standard, change your life. But there was never any discussion as to what that was, what the complications could be.
Despite having her surgery completed on the same day as her wedding anniversary, it's now an occasion Paula remembers for all the wrong reasons. She ended up suffering adverse effects from the Rectopexy mesh implanted by Mr Dixon. It's a procedure which Paula says she didn't need in the first place, as alternative, less invasive treatments were available. When she discovered this, she was left feeling angry and upset. 6 to 8 months post-surgery, her symptoms went back to the way they were before. She says, if anything, things got worse. Following complaints, an official review was conducted, which found that over the course of 10 years, 203 patients operated on by Tony Dixon suffered harm and should have been offered alternative treatment before surgery. He was dismissed by the North Bristol NHS Trust in 2019, although he maintains he always acted in good faith. The Trust says it's implemented a series of measures to make sure nothing like this happens again. Paula had her mesh removed by a private consultant in 2019. But the scars run more than skin deep.
It's difficult to say how you are. You're different. You're never going to be how you were before the implant was put in. However, yes, I don't have blocked bowel and bladder now, so that's great. But I suffer like others have suffered.
Paula's new normal has led her to find solace in supporting others. In 2018, she set up a group to help people who've had their lives changed by Rectopexy mesh and related procedures. Jim Sharples is one of these people. He was operated on privately by Mr Dixon in 2015. He went in for one operation and found out another one had been performed, removing part of his bowel.
That group has been really helpful, meeting people who have had operations that were unnecessary, weren't consented to. And as I say, I'm not unique, and it has changed my life, but I still come to work, I still do what I do, I can still do those things, but other people it's affected hugely. You know, it's changed their lives beyond repair, and it's damaged a lot of people, all because I feel, you know, a consultant was left to his own devices and wasn't really checked up on.
Today, Paula and others who've been affected arrived at the hearing in Manchester, a show of solidarity to the victims whose stories are being heard. They're determined to show the pain they've been through won't be allowed to be repeated. So I think it's important to point out it's not just the rectopexy mesh surgeries that have affected people. Jim in the piece that actually had the STARR surgery, which involves using a stapling technique. So he had that done at SPIRE Hospital, and SPIRE has apologised to patients who've received a poor standard of care, and says a comprehensive review is ongoing. Now, Paula Goss, who you saw in the piece there, she's been at the hearing today, and she's expressed some disappointment to me that only 6 patients are being heard from. But lawyer Carolyn Webber-Brown, who is representing some former patients, says overall all of the issues being looked at during this hearing are all encompassing of the problems people have faced. She also explained to me the significance overall of this hearing.
Up until now, his patients have had to really fight to have the difficulties they've had with mesh been recognised, and a lot of them have had times where they've gone to clinicians and just been told, you're absolutely fine, it's psychological. So having the GMC validate a lot of their concerns, because that's going to really help them hopefully move forward.
Evidence will begin tomorrow when we're set to hear from the first witness, patient A. We have approached Mr Dixon's lawyers for a comment. We've not heard back today, but overall he's always said he's acted in good faith and that any surgery can have complications. Well, Paula and others here are hopeful that the hearing will bring some closure in their fight to have their voices heard.
Okay, Annie in Manchester, thank you. Let's bring you some other news.